This is a really great question because, so many of us, especially in the health and wellness world, equate health with restriction. And that just isn't healthy. And that's actually what drove me into the most unhealthy phase of my life. It's if we're looking at it in terms of restriction and how strict we need to be, we're looking at it the wrong way. What's healthy for you is also going to be very different for the next person. So it's finding that happy medium and what works for you. So a typical menstrual cycle will last about 28 days and have 3 phases: follicular, ovulatory, and luteal. Any sort of length between 26 and 36 days is also considered pretty normal. And we also lose 6 to 8 teaspoons on average of blood. Anything more than 16 teaspoons about is considered too heavy of a period, or anything longer than 7 days is also considered to have a period. And the color wise, it's like if you were to scrape your knee, for example. I know we probably have all done that at some point in our lives. That's kind of the color of the blood that it should be. Anything that's purple or anything that's like purple or brown would be oxidized blood, and we might see this in the beginning of our period, but we shouldn't really be seeing this at all once our period has started. There definitely could be if you're eating a lot of beta-carotene rich foods and you aren't able to convert the beta-carotene into real vitamin A, so retinol, your hands and feet will turn orange. And so that points to, this usually has to do with sluggish thyroid. And, if you're underweight, it might mean that your thyroid is struggling. Remember, people with hypothyroidism don't necessarily have to be overweight. They can also be underweight. So I'll be doing a post on fasting soon, but basically I don't believe that there's any benefit. Fasting is basically starvation, and women especially are very sensitive to stress and food restriction. Food restriction is a stress. We can't detoxify well. We can't convert thyroid hormone. And if we have lipofuscin in our cells, the autophagy that we're supposed to be achieving and fasting for is not happening. It's very possible. Endometriosis has to do with extremely high levels of estrogen, and autoimmunity can be also driven by estrogen as well. So I would check out my post titled "The Root Cause of Autoimmunity?" Yeah, sure. I never have my carrot alone. So, having it with some beef is totally fine. And mushrooms as well are estrogen detoxifying. But what's even more detoxifying is finding a meal frequency and size that works for you. IBS has a lot to do with serotonin buildup, so I would check out my post titled "Serotonin, the Stress Hormone." Check out my post titled "How to Get Rid of Cellulite." Not necessarily, I just make sure I'm getting magnesium chloride, so do what is more affordable for you. I think this is made with red palm oil, so it should be fine actually. Check out my post titled "Histamine, the Ultimate Hormone of Alarm." Good non-dairy sources of calcium could include anchovies and sardines. You could also do like bone broths, fish head broths, stuff like that. This is not the first time I've been asked about the bean protocol. I really don't know much about it or like who invented it, but I am not about it. So beans are very estrogenic. They have PUFAs, they have anti-nutrients. They're very irritating. They can be very irritating to the digestive tract. They're not a good source of carbs or protein. They're not like a real food. You need to have protein and carb in addition to that if you plan on incorporating beans. So that's my answer. I would probably avoid it. Real foods like fruit and meat are excellent sources of minerals. Salt as well, just adding that generously to your food. And then, mineral drops are a nice supplement, but you need to have a food foundation first. We have an estrogen surge in our follicular phase before we ovulate, so this could probably have to do with excess estrogen or too high of estrogen. So I'd probably focus on supporting your estrogen detoxification pathways, making sure you're eating enough. To be honest, it's probably not going to help very much, at least in my experience. You really need to have a good food foundation first. So like what you're eating and how frequently is going to matter way more than this supplement. It can be. Butterflies that we feel in our stomach, that's adrenaline. This is going to be very different for everybody because a carb is not a carb. It's also going to depend on what kind of carbs work for you. There's glucose, there's fructose. You have to play around with the kind that works for you. I'm not a fan, to be honest. It is the only non-hormonal form of birth control other than, the condoms and things like that. But it still is a foreign object in the body, and it works by creates a lot of mucus in the uterus, keeps sperm from going where it needs to go or wants to go. It's copper. And so a lot of unbound copper reacts really synergistically with estrogen in the body. High estrogen is not good, and neither is high unbound copper. So these kind of work, and the body stores them in their tissues, and it's a whole other problem while you're on it, and then when you come off of it as well. PCOS is a metabolic disorder, so there's usually extremely high estrogen, so hyperestrogenism, as well as hyperinsulinemia. So these two combined kind of, flourish and create other issues. So addressing PCOS would mean addressing these things. Your mother could have had hyperestrogenism when she gave birth to you. She could also have PCOS. Our parents kind of imprint their health on us. It's also a matter of how we've lived our life up until this point. So, how have we been nourishing ourselves? What kind of chemicals have we been exposing ourselves to? How have we been living our life? Have we been living a stressful one? So all of these factors can play a role in developing PCOS. I don't think so. Yes, I do. All the body wants to do, biologically speaking, is reproduce. And so it's trying so hard every single second of every day to reproduce. And so as long as you're giving it the tools that it needs to replenish itself, make sure you're nourishing yourself, make sure you're minimizing stress. 7 years is a long time to go without a period, but remember, that's all your body wants to do. So just be patient and consistent. I'm not a fan of whey protein, especially because it has tryptophan. Check out my post titled Tryptophan and Inflammatory Protein. I think casein is a better option, but a lot of people have trouble handling it if they have lactose intolerance. So in that case, hydrolyzed collagen might be a better option for them too. I'd be looking at all of my electrolytes probably, but in all honesty, I'd probably look at my other vitamins and minerals too. This could be many things. It could be that you didn't eat at all before your workout. It could be that you didn't eat enough before your workout or the right things. It could be that your workout depleted you of minerals that you didn't have to give. So I'd be looking at, there are richer sources, but it is a nice supplement. Make sure you're ovulating and make sure your estrogen detoxification pathways are fully supported. This probably means that your detoxification systems weren't supported enough to detoxify whatever was unearthed during your lymphatic massage. So, any kind of detoxifying action, detoxifying action can be a stress on the body if it's not ready for it or if it's not properly prepared to detoxify. So I would probably take some time away from that and make sure you're really supported the next time you go for one. I think there are far better and more gentle ways to detoxify estrogen. DIM is pretty harsh. To me personally, it made me lose my hair even more. So I don't really like it for anyone. For anyone who's coming off the birth control pill or, just has excess estrogen in general. I do like avocado. I love the taste of it. It's part of my heritage. But I don't really eat it that often. I prioritize saturated fats way more than monounsaturated fats, which is what's in the avocado. But if you really like it, that doesn't mean you can't find a way to incorporate it more into your food regime. Potentially, you might also just need to eat more frequently. So I'd be looking at what your meal is comprised of, as well as how frequently you're eating. I like them a lot, especially if they're properly prepared. They work really well for me, but that be something that you have to find out that works for you in particular if you want to incorporate more of them into your diet. Women are going through perimenopause and menopause a lot earlier today than ever before, but short luteal phases rarely have to do with age and more have to do with the amount of stress that we've been under up until this point. So how have we been nourishing ourselves? How have we been living our lives? It's all pretty much very cumulative. But, that's not to say like all hope is lost. I would keep an eye on it and make sure if it continues to happen, something really needs to be reevaluated, or multiple things need to be reevaluated. And once you address these things, you often see a reversal of these symptoms. Check out my post titled The Truth About Heartburn. These are usually due to estrogen excess and iron overload. Yeah, it can be a great way to get magnesium, especially in a very gentle way. So go for it. Red light therapy is excellent. I would go for it.